get started, let's all stand and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, hopefully all of you have had a chance to read your consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? So moved. It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Public comments, we have a couple of visitors, but we'll wait on you for just a moment. Mr. Jones?
I have no comment, just listening.
Okay, we'll move on. Update from Lonnie Duvall, President.
Good morning. Lots of projects moving forward and moving along, some of those. You've probably heard some other things about. We'll talk a little bit specifically about the Lone Bison solar development. So thank you to Board Member Rupp for bringing copies for you all. Just to give you a little bit of the background for how this economic impact report came to be. So we, Finney County, did not have updated regulations in place for renewable energy projects specifically. We had some kind of old language that was pretty relevant in the 90s, but not as relevant for today's types of systems. And the very first thing we should say is thank you to the county, to the county commissioners, and to the county administrator and the planning office, including McKinsey. We kind of had to hurry up and get our regulations all updated and the process really updated to all of these projects to work through the permitting phase. So what we landed on in that process was what we call a special use permit. So it's one of the zoning tools that get used. There's a lot of confusion, so I'm glad you brought this, and then we kind of have an opportunity to explain how this works. But most of you have heard of a conditional use permit. In different jurisdictions, conditional use permits are issued in different ways. So the purpose of a conditional use permit is that you have an underlying zoning district. We're just going to say agriculture because that's the easiest one, I think, for all of us to wrap our heads around. So we have a parcel and it's zoned as agriculture use. But then we have something that wants to locate there that is not a traditional agriculture use. So here's a simple one. A dog boarding kennel. Let's say a dog boarding kennel wants to go out onto a parcel of ground out on Jenny Barker, and it's zoned agricultural. Well, we don't need to change the zoning classification because we actually have that as an allowable use with a conditional use permit. So it's kind of an overlay that just sits on top of the traditional zoning category and allows for specific uses. In our case, in Finney County's case, the process that we set up for issuing conditional use permits was that I want to open this boarding kennel, I fill out a conditional use permit application, and it goes directly to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which is a constitutional body that's fully appointed. There's no elected component to our Board of Zoning Appeals. That body is, in Finney County, is quasi-judicial, meaning that whatever decision they make, that decision can only be called into question by a district court. So they're not in a line, if you will, with the elected bodies. They just immediately, they can make a decision, and the only way to question that decision is in the courts. That is not the way it is in most communities. Most communities utilize their planning commissions, which is also constitutional regulations, there's just a litany of process that they have to go through. By the time they get ready for the special use permit, they're still not fully designed. They're still not fully prepared to actually start construction. They're now at the place where they need the authority to issue the financing for the project. So these are, as you can imagine, huge investments that they're making. And the finance side of it has to be instigated prior to the last phase of issuance from Southwest Power Pool. So it's a lot, but I think it's important to understand that when we're at this special use permit phase, we're not granting them the authority to go build a project. We are simply telling them the zoning use, the use you are proposing for this land, we agree fits with the regulations that the county commission put in place and said, in an agricultural zone, we are good with this type of use so long as you meet all of these requirements. So, interestingly, we have a lot of planning commission experience right here. Vicki served on it forever and still goes to every meeting. And Lance currently serves on the planning commission, as does Shannon. So they got to see the entire application, which I think Lance brought the packet.
This was the application, over 100 pages, and it is so detailed. I mean, the criteria that we have, they answered every criteria and made it easy to find A, B, C, D, E, F. This is exciting.
Yeah.
And you can see from the economic impact, that's why I printed that out, what it's going to do for our county.
Yeah, and so just to kind of give you an understanding of the economic impact report, so for the purposes of the special use permit, they really only need a preliminary economic impact report. So this is really just a snapshot based on our best estimates, right? When they actually are prepared to move forward with their full site plans and all of the layouts are ready and all of that, then we'll go into a development agreement process. And that process is where, if you think this application material looks big, multiply that times 3 probably, right? For when we go to actually negotiate the development agreement, they have to have finalized reports of all of the preliminary stuff. That will include a full economic analysis. So that economic analysis will be outsourced. We're working right now with KU. I think their public policy group is going to prepare those for us. We would like them to be the same every time so that the governing bodies get accustomed to seeing the information kind of in the same order they're used to seeing it. In some places, they just have the project, get that analysis done, and they can obviously hire any contractor to do that. Again, we prefer to have them all look the same so that the governing body and the public can always say, oh, I know what page that's on, that comes after this or whatever, so that we have, again, we want to be as transparent as we can with these projects. We want people to understand them. We understand there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation out there, and that just happens. These things are complicated. I just took 5 minutes to explain to you one simple piece of that process, right? So the preliminary economic impact form we will complete in our office. So between Shannon and I, we kind of looked at several different examples of preliminary economic impact analyses and determined what was going to be important for the purposes of the planning commission to look at that and say, yes, we understand the implications of this project and it makes sense, right? So even though their decision isn't based on that, we think it's important that they at least have some idea of why these projects will matter to the community. So in this case, we're happy to answer additional questions on it, but you can see the types of things that we're weighing. For a project of this nature, it's no different than when we do any other industrial project. When we look at the empirical plant or the DFA plant, that construction period is a large economic driver, right? So you see that we actually measure that. We give our best estimate. Now, in our you know, Shannon and I are neither one fluffy folks. So we tend to underplay the spend, if you will. So, you know, you guys have seen the reports where they, you know, make estimates of each person that visits your community is going to spend X amount of dollars. We've dropped those back down. This is a very conservative report because we don't want to overstate it, right? There's plenty of good, even with conservative numbers. It's a very good project, right? So we don't think there's any reason to put any fluff in it. It, again, likely will produce more economic impact than what we've analyzed. That's okay. That'll be a good thing. So when you see the full economic impact analysis, those numbers may be quite a bit higher than what you see estimated in these preliminary reports, because again, we're trying to be as conservative as we can when we estimate that. So you can see that you're looking at the room nights and, you know, how many construction workers can we anticipate having on the site, not just over the entire period, but at one time, how many construction workers would likely be there. That kind of information is important, obviously, because that gives us a better understanding of how many will be here for how long, right? A lot of times you can say, gosh, there were over 2,000 construction workers who worked on that project. Right, but, you know, 100 of those may have been there for 2 days, and then, you know, 600 of them might have been there for 2 weeks. So there's just a lot of variation in that. So you can see that what Shannon did was broke it down into construction job years. If you have questions about that, he'll be happy to explain how he determines those. The next page, you see we go into the operational life. So the standard for these large scale solar projects is a 30-year operational life is what you analyze it on. That doesn't mean it's no longer usable in 30 years. It doesn't mean it goes away in 30 years. It just means that for the purposes of depreciation and valuation, we assume that the equipment as it's installed will be taxed that way for 30 years, okay? And then we go down into, and I should also, during that operational life, that's where we calculated what they're estimating for the jobs that will be ongoing, that are directly related to the solar project. So that's what that operational and maintenance payroll is that's showing there. And then we get into tax collections, and again, this part can get a little bit hairy. So in the state of Kansas, the legislature several years ago put into place a tax abatement for renewable energy projects. So wind and solar projects automatically qualify for a 10-year tax abatement, property tax abatement. So when you're looking at this kind of tax table down there, what we've estimated there is if we just continue collecting the taxes on it, and again, this is on ag use land that's currently valued as ag use. So when we look at the taxes in that far right column, that's looking at it and saying nothing changes. We just continue to collect the same taxes that we're collecting today. Obviously, we broke it down into 2 time periods because you have, again, that period during the tax abatement, and then you have the years 11 through 30. So after the tax abatement, throughout the useful life is what we're considering there. So if we look at what it's currently doing over those 30 years, down at the very bottom there, that number is what we would expect to collect. We all know there's, you know, valuations increase and, you know, whatever mill levies change. Based on today's mill levy, based on today's valuations, that's the closest we can get to that without just making up some kind of accelerator. So assuming that it just gets left like it is, over 30 years, we'd be collecting around $216,000 in property taxes on that project, or on that land. The estimated tax collections in that left-hand column, you're seeing that the property tax collected, so there's a portion of taxes that are not abated by statute. So that 3.7 million, 3.68 million, we get to year 11, we've depreciated down, the Property Valuation Division at Department of Revenue actually sets the depreciation schedule for these renewable energy projects. So in the case of solar components, that depreciation schedule is on a straight line, lose your guess. Straight line, seven year to salvage value is how we tax that. So it scales down, they're basically dropping an equal percentage for the first 7 years, which during that time, remember, it's already abated anyway. But then we land at a 20% salvage value. So what the state tells us we can assume is that whatever it originally cost to build it, you can assume that over the taxable lifetime, so from years 11 through 30, it will be taxed at 20% of whatever that cost when new was. Okay? So we can get pretty close to how those revenues are going to look, just based on the construction estimates they gave us and assuming what gets valued as real property based on that cost when new, if you will. So our best guess is that over 30 years at this use, at this proposed use, we would be collecting $64,672,000 versus the $216,000 that it would get taxed otherwise. Any questions?
I just work with the kind of numbers that make my head hurt.
Well, these are the little ones.
It's amazing.
What part does the entities have to vote on whether they accept the tax?
Yeah, so they can't, the local governments cannot inflict taxes during that 10-year period. Those are statutorily abated by the legislature, so we cannot override that. We can't speak back to that. What we do get, however, is the opportunity to collect either payments in lieu of taxes, often referred to as pilots, or contribution agreements, which are different legally than a pilot is. But those are agreements that are entered into between the governing body, in this case will be the county, any county who enters into that pilot agreement or contribution agreement with the project. So that's a negotiated agreement, and those are all over the map as far as how folks determine what those amounts are going to be. In some cases, they simply take a per megawatt charge and say, however many megawatts you're producing, we're going to collect X amount of dollars for each megawatt, and that's the number, and there's no getting around it, whatever. We don't have, this will be our first one to have that negotiation with, so we have different options that we've created. The chief administrative officers of all of our entities, so county administrator, city manager, community college president, school district, and myself, we've been working on the various models that can be used to establish those contribution agreements. In most cases, the project will present us with their proposed terms for the development agreement, which includes those payments over that abated period. And that, again, gives us a starting point. We'll determine from there. The goal, obviously, is to replace as much of those revenues as we can, because there are costs associated with these projects. Now, to that point, there are specific addendums to the development agreement that cover the areas that are kind of outside of the general economic costs associated with projects. So the easy ones to really specifically talk about are road use agreements. So as part of, you'll hear those called RUAs or RUAs sometimes when you hear conversation about them. But a road use agreement is, we derive that agreement by saying, okay, these projects are not usually located in a very convenient, right off the highway location, right? So what the project has to do, their engineering firms have to come back to us and say, here's where our project sits. It's on these 10,000 acres, okay? And to get to those 10,000 acres, what we have to do is haul materials and have construction crews making the trip. They're going to go down the highway to this road, and then they're roads has a different character to it, right? So we know highways are designed to carry a certain load. The county roads may not be designed, the county roads they need to use may not be designed to a standard that will allow that weight to go across it. We have bridges sometimes that have to be crossed, so we don't know, we have to go in and determine, can that bridge actually work for these components? If it can't, is there another route that they can take for those heavy components, or do they need to upgrade that bridge in order for that to even accommodate getting this project built? So it's a very intense process that we go through. They will literally drive those roads, have video proof of the condition those roads are currently in. There will be engineering testing that says, as of right now, the roads you're going to use, number one, will meet your needs. You can use them for this construction project. And this is the exact condition that they're in. To the best of our analysis right now, this is the condition those roads are in. When your project is done, these roads must be restored to at least the condition they're in today or better. They cannot be left in a condition worse than you found them in, if you will.
Do we have to improve them so that they can go down there?
No, sir, they have to improve
They,
it.
okay.
Yes, that everything falls on the project. So if if there is something that needs to be done before it can be used for their purposes, it is on them to either, like I said, find an alternate route that doesn't require that upgrade, or they need to make whatever upgrades are necessary to make it usable. So it is a very in-depth process, and we work very closely with the project all the way through to make sure that they have a good understanding of how that's going to work. We do also take into account that we don't want to unduly burden our existing users. So if there's a route that might be accessible to them, but it's also a route that one of our existing industries is already using consistently for their employee traffic or for materials hauling or whatever, all of those things get taken into account. So again, we want to make sure that we're not unduly burdening the folks who already live here, who have already paid for those roads through paying their taxes, right? We also pay attention to things like school bus routes and school bus timing, and we obviously encourage them, maybe don't have the road blocked when we know that we've got 4 school buses that have to get through this route, those kind of things. So there's a lot that goes into those projects, but that road use agreement is an addendum to, but separate from the standard development agreement process. There's a development agreement, and you have a road use agreement. In addition to that, there's typically a first responder, an emergency services type agreement that goes into place. As you can imagine, especially when we're focused on new industries, different industries, but even when we build traditional industrial projects, anytime there's a large-scale construction project going on, there's an increased risk to the folks who are working there, to the folks who are traveling near it. That's just part of it, right? When we have something of that magnitude going on, there's more opportunity for something to happen and somebody to get hurt. So as part of these projects, again, they're not typically in super convenient spots. So it's important that we look at it through the lens of how long would it take a fire truck to get to it? How long would it take an ambulance to get there? How long would it take our sheriff's department to get there? Whatever the case may be. So we consider all of those things as well and have analysis that goes into that. And then we make agreements with the project that during this construction period, you acknowledge that you are putting your workers, the folks around this project at an increased risk, and that you're willing to pay the cost for that, if you will. We don't want that cost to just be spread among existing taxpayers, because again, they're not the ones creating the increased risk. So Larry might remember that when the Buffalo Dunes Wind project was built, which none of that project is actually located within Finney County. It's all over the county line, starts in Haskell County. But even then, again, because they were going to have large cranes and big boring machines and all the things that went into building those wind towers there, they entered into an emergency services agreement temporary EMS facility that was set up on site that was manned by Finney County EMS. So just to kind of give you an idea, these projects are not taken lightly. And they're, at this point, the planning commission, that they did fully approve the special use permit, unanimous vote, but they are not saying, okey doke, good luck, let us know how it goes, right? They're just saying, yes, you fit the qualifications, and we acknowledge that the county has many more regulations, many more steps that you have to take, but we're saying, right now, you're good to go, so long as you meet all of those steps going forward. Now it's up to the county commission to hold them accountable to those standards that the county has set.
And the planning commission makes the recommendation to the county commission to approve it, and then it's up to the county commission whether or not we go ahead and
Issue
approve it
that
after
permit. Right.
review it. So we felt like that 2 steps was gonna be much better than what was our old conditional use permit way of doing it. Plus, a conditional use is more temporary. It could be revoked, it could expire, that could, there were challenges with that, so I think we landed on a good
Yeah.
spot.
Who makes-
Excellent explanation on it.
That was
Very good. Who makes the final determination as to the final condition of those roads that we're talking about? Does the county do that? Or would
Yeah,
they
so
have
there's an,
third person entity come in? or-
part of your agreement up front is that everybody's going to agree to this engineering firm, basically. So both parties say that we understand it's going to be outsourced to a non-biased, engineering firm that's going to go out and they're going to, typically you would use the same engineering firm, right? You have an engineering report up front that says, here's the condition. We, because we've watched too many other communities have issues where there's too many there's disagreements down the road as to who's going to handle what down the road. Didn't mean that one to be so funny. You're welcome. So we require that there's an agreement up front that everybody concurs with that original engineering report that this is the condition of the road. So if there's going to be a disagreement, we want them to lodge that complaint up front. If there are no disagreements about that original engineering report, that is the record. That is where we stand. Everybody agrees this is the condition of the road today. And then that, like I said, hopefully the same engineering firm gets to come back at the end of the project and go back through that same process and say, this is where we see this now. So these are the deficiencies from wherever it started to wherever it is now. These are the things that we all agree need to be brought back to a standard. Now, it is entirely possible that your roads end up in better position after they're done with the project, because if they've had to make significant improvements to accommodate before they can even start the project, it's very possible that the condition that they've improved them to, even if it's deteriorated through the construction period, would still be better than the current condition of the roads. So people should not assume that just because a project utilizes a road, that means they're going to have to go in and completely rebuild that road when they're done. Not necessarily. If they rebuild it up front, they may not have to do anything to it. Additionally, if the road has been improved, we have a lot of county roads that have been improved to a pretty good standard because they're already hauling cattle or, heavy loads are already utilizing a lot of those roads. So if it's a road that's built to a condition that can handle those weights and so forth, it may be just fine. So yeah, there's a lot of nuance that goes into that. But to answer your question, there's an agreement up front and everybody says we're going to accept the engineering report as written and that's where we're going. So, yeah, it's not the project telling us, hey, we think the road's fine.
Yeah.
Catch you later. It doesn't work that way. Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
This is just the decommissioning report, part of the application. It's 15 pages long. That's how detailed it is. And this is just the application.
Right.
So.
And the decommissioning, I think you could all understand what that means, but that just means if they take the project out of useful life, what are they required to do? Can they just leave it and, wait for it to decay, or, are we going to require them to take it away? We obviously are going to require them to take it away if it's no longer of useful value. So there's a decommissioning agreement that's put in place, and they say right in that decommissioning plan, within X number of days after it goes out of service, we're going to notify the county that it is out of service. We will not be reinstating it. And we will begin the decommissioning process, which means that everything we did to build it, we'll undo, and we'll take it out of here. So anything, any foundations that had to be poured, anything like that, they're required to go back in and remediate back to, again, at least the condition that they found that in. The land itself, at a minimum. They have to take it back to that. So nothing is allowed to stay on site if it's no longer being used, because obviously we can no longer collect taxes on it if it's no longer being used, and we don't want it sitting there causing that land to not go back to its prior use, which in this case would be agriculture. So we do require them to clean it up. In addition to that, there are financial bonds that have to be put in place for the decommissioning. So there's a financial agreement tied to that. So just in case the company that enters into that agreement with us goes bankrupt and we can't ever find anybody who takes responsibility for it, there's a legal protection in place for the county, and the county is able then to go back on those bonds, just like they would a performance bond, any other performance bond that they would issue, that they would have it issued with them as beneficiary. So they still have the opportunity, they have a legal pathway by which they can collect the dollars needed from the company or their insurance provider, but it will not be county taxpayer dollars that have to go out there and clean up any mess that would be left. That goes entirely back onto the bonding agency.
So the estimated tax collections comes back through the county and then gets dispersed amongst the taxing agencies?
Right. So when you look at years 1 through 10, again, those years that you're showing there would be paid the same way they're normally paid, and the quick taxation primer on that is that you have different jurisdictions that have a levy depending on where the property lies and depending on whether it's in the incorporated area of the city or not. In this case, this property this project sits on property that is predominantly maybe 100% in USD 363 school district jurisdiction. The Garden City Community College has taxing jurisdiction, and Finney County. There are potentially townships and other little, smaller little components that are there. As with any tax abatement project that we do, the initial, the base property tax continues to be collected forever. We do not abate the existing dollars being collected. So yes, for those years 1 through 10, they pay whatever the property tax, bill is on that. And then just like any other property tax that gets paid, goes to the treasurer's office. They say this many dollars goes to the county, this many dollars goes to the community college, and this many dollars go to the school district and townships, whatever, based on that year's mill levy for each of those taxing jurisdictions. So it gets handled through a normal process. Beyond that, pilot agreements, contribution agreements, those can be set up through interlocal agreements. Those can be set up through basically a contract that gets made between the county, who is, yes, the collector, because they're the one entering into the agreement, but they're actually entering into that agreement, in our case, on behalf of all of the entities that are involved. So that is not a set process yet. We are finishing that analysis and determining how exactly our governing bodies want to enter into that agreement. But there will be some mechanism that we utilize that will be a standard mechanism. It will be used across any project of this type that would come in, and that will be agreed upon before the projects start paying, so that the public is well aware of how those dollars will be handled, and so that the taxing entities can count on those revenues, whatever those revenues are. As you all know, you've all sat on budgeting committees, and you know that it's important to understand how much money you're going to have from year to year to pay for the services and such that that you're doing. So, any other questions?
I kind of have one.
Keep going, keep going. Yeah, you're going to catch me in one I don't know eventually, and that's okay.
What happens if, and my expectation is about 10 or 15 years, they're going to replace all those panels. Not because they're wore out, but because of technology, they can get 3 times the amount of power in the same footprint. So does the abatement start over, or would they be taxed at if they invest $500 million, how would that work?
Yeah, no, they do have to notify us of any retooling, resetting of equipment. If it drastically changes the footprint of the project or changes anything materially, would be probably the legal term for that, it may trigger a new approval process for good reason. As you can imagine, you don't want to approve something to look a certain way,
Right.
and then technology changes and it's going to be 100 feet taller and, whatever. You don't want that. You're not just giving them carte blanche, right, to do whatever they want with that.
Okay.
So it may trigger reevaluation, and that's all spelled out in the development agreement that they will enter into. It will say, you can make modifications to basically this percentage or this percentage. Some of that is wiggly lines, right? Because if you say, that's a material change. Yeah, that was a huge difference you made. And I may say, well, no, I really just changed the color of the posts. I mean, I don't think, well, it looks a lot different to me. Well, structurally isn't any different. It's just I used pink posts instead of the black ones that you had in place, right? So some of that gets wiggly, right? Some of that is left to determination. Again, the hope is that because we go through this, the process that we go through with them, and we build the relationships that we build with them over that period, and we set standards that we make it clear we expect them to be accountable to and to be responsible to our existing tax base as well as the neighbors in the area. That is the best thing we can do to ensure that we're not going to have those kind of haggling going on at some point. It is also in the best interest of governing bodies to the best of their ability to not enter into any agreements that are going to outlive that body's seating, right? So we try to address as many of those things that could be a challenge for a future elected body. We try to address as much of that as we can in the legal agreement, so that if we have to, there's a lawyer somewhere who can say, nope, we know what the intent was. That was pretty clear. Your company, we get it. It's different people today than it was when you signed this agreement. But when you sign this, that's why you have all the legalese. It says you're assigned, your successors, all the words. You're saying, not only me, but the people who come after me are going to be held to this same standard and these same agreements. So yes, there is conversation that goes on. And again, if it's considered a material change, all of that alters how it would be managed. There is an assumption, to your point, there is an assumption that they will be doing standard upgrades and taking advantage of opportunities as they go. But if they were to significantly increase the output, that can change the taxable nature of the project as well, depending on how tax policy happens to be written at the time that they would do that. So
in the 29th year, huge hailstorm or a tornado comes in and wipes the whole thing out, they have to replace all that?
Well, no, I mean, they're a private entity just like anybody else, so they can take the insurance and decommission at that point.
Go away.
And clean it up.
They still have to decommission, right? It doesn't matter what happens. If it is not in useful purpose, not serving its original useful purpose any longer, it does trigger a decommissioning, and they have very strict timeline when they have to do that. So again, they have to notify the governing body that it is no longer in service for whatever reason, and then they are required to start the steps that are laid out in that agreement for the decommissioning portion. Even if to your point, a hailstorm comes through and they're not going to be able to produce energy for a certain amount of time, and let's say it's going to take, let's just go back in time to when we had terrible supply chain issues during the pandemic, right? So if it's a situation where, hey, we've ordered all of the new equipment, but it's not going to be here until this day and whatever, if it is going to be out of service for any amount of time, that's going to affect the value of it. Then again, they have to notify us of that so that we're aware that there may be a challenge with it, but they're still required to meet all of the other standards. The county obviously will have a clause in there that says, because again, part of this is if it's out of service for X amount of days and you're not making any attempts to put it back into service, then we have the authority to actually force the decommissioning project. So it's in the best interest of the project to keep us informed, right? And say, hey, we had a hailstorm and we're out of service, but we're coming back, and here's where we are in that process, and we had to order the equipment and whatever. Don't trigger the cleanup clause on us, please, because we're still intending to repair and get it back into useful life.
I'm assuming that decommissioning is federally regulated, at least to some extent.
It is not.
It's not? Wow. Interesting.
Not really their problem, what happens
Okay.
to it. I mean, there's, obviously, again, notifications go into place, but, and I mean, we can look back not that far in our history and see where an industrial project, a standard industrial project, was no longer serving any useful purpose.
Yeah.
A great big one.
Yeah.
A really big one on the east edge of town. And had we had an agreement in place that required, if this thing is no longer usable, you got to come clean it up, we'd have been in a whole lot different position than we were in, unfortunately, with that behemoth. Thankfully, we're no longer in that position, but it required obviously a lot of heavy lifting by this organization to get that remedied, right? So we try again to protect the governing bodies and ensure that they have all of the protections in place that they need to answer to their constituency and make sure that that property is used to its highest and best use. Are you done?
Yes. One. It's a yes or no. It's more of a statement. I just want you to correct me if I'm wrong. All the panels and all that stuff is American-made technology. Isn't that what they said? That's what I understood. Joe? Yeah, I thought that's what they said. Oh.
We don't have any control over that, do we?
No, but it was.
I certainly don't, but-
it was a
But did
big
they
plus.
say, did they?
That's what I remember them
Yeah.
saying. Because somebody.
Be
And
nice if they-
that does lead to one of the other questions. A lot of folks do ask, who owns this company? It is fully
It is,
American
yeah,
owned,
that
fully
I know
American
this,
invested. Yeah, so,
Okay. Well,
all right.
move on.
So going back to Lance's question, or comment about the panels, either they wear out or they need to be replaced, can they just say, we're not going to do it and quit and
No.
decommission and?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It is a private business. We still have a democracy that allows businesses to do what they want to do. They can still close if they choose to. Yeah. Now, I would say it would not be in their best interest to do so most of the time, right? Because they've got lease agreements on that property where they're locked in. They're going to continue to pay for the use of that land and so forth. So it's not in their best interest to do that. But of course, that doesn't mean that they couldn't or wouldn't do that. Again, these projects are happening now because the demands on energy are so great. So, a lot of people over the years there's been a lot of debate about, does renewable energy even work? And, and we can all, debate that forever. But what we do know now is that technology has advanced to a place where it is not just a cool component to have in our electrical mix, it is a necessary piece of that electrical mix.
Depends on the Strait of Hormuz.
It doesn't depend on that big ship bringing it to us, right? So as long as the sun is shining, we get that power. So, and additionally, one of the other challenges that has always existed with both wind and solar energy has been the ability to store that power and utilize it outside of times when the sun was shining or the wind was blowing. And now there are battery energy systems that are in place that have been designed that will actually store that energy so that it can be released slowly over time instead of rapid release, if you will. So there's a ton of information out there that we can share with you, but no, the project, it would be in the best interest of the project, obviously, to stay in use.
Sure.
And there will be some triggers. There are agreements that are entered into with the power pool, for instance, that if that becomes a grid component, if an energy project is actually part of the grid reliance, if you will, so that we know that there's industry here that's tied to it, but there's also industry in Sydney, Nebraska, or gosh knows where else that's relying on that energy getting onto the grid, then yes, there are some triggers that they can pull that say, no, you can't just leave because we don't have a redundancy opportunity. We can't have a way to replace you if you suddenly just disappear. So there are many legal layers to these projects, based on how large they are, based on how their power is being disseminated, if you will. It could be, if it's a direct feed to a project, which is also possible, that they can be what they call behind the meter. In that case, they've got an agreement with the end user that they aren't going to be able to just, never mind, we're turning off the power. Obviously, that doesn't work either. So lots of agreements, lots of things go into place. And I think the most important thing to understand is none of this happens quickly, easily, or without a lot of money being spent on the part of the project. And we can assure you, I hope that you have a level of confidence just in hearing how much we know about these projects, that we have done our part to protect the citizenry and to ensure that the projects that are being built here are projects built with companies we can trust and who we have made clear that we have a high standard for development in our community, and we absolutely have an accountability and a responsibility to our existing taxpayers to ensure that the economic opportunities we're creating are opportunities that truly benefit the entire region and not just the few who happen to have a land lease signed. So,
I have one question. Okay, as an inspector, I used to be an inspector and a builder, and is the county going to have, do we have anything that we inspect, or do we just rely on them to do it?
nope, they will be held to a standard, and that will happen through a contracted, because we obviously don't have, renewable energy qualified inspectors on staff. But yes, and they will be required to pay for that. So they will pay for the county's cost to have outside inspectors, but those inspectors will work for us, not for them, right? So they will be looking at it through the lens of, is this what the county said they wanted built? Do we think this meets the standards? Again, everything is designed to federal standards and state standards and local standards, so there's a lot of layers that go into that. But yes, part of the process will be that we ensure that we have outside consultation available to do all inspections.
So they'll work for us, but the company will pay for their services.
That's right. Isn't that wonderful?
Yes.
And that's not really out of the ordinary. I mean, we do the same thing with large industrial projects. So the DFA plant, the Empirical project, we do that, right? Because the taxpayers do not want us to have expert inspectors who sit on staff and wait for a large project to come along. That doesn't make any sense. So instead, we do an outside contract for those services in most instances, and that's paid for. If we just happen to get lucky and some really qualified inspector came to town and said, hey, I want to work for you guys and be able to inspect all these projects.
There you go, Ron.
We would still require that the projects pay for the services to allow for those inspections.
Were you kind of fishing there, Ron?
I think he was, yeah.
No, he just retired.
Okay, well, this has been super fun. It really has. And I should also note that we are going to do several opportunities for the public to come in and ask the same questions you all are asking, get the same kinds of information. We will even bring experts instead of me to answer their questions. So you'll be hearing more about that. Scott and I are working on some scheduling for some of those public opportunities right now. So the word will be out soon on those. We want the public to be informed, and quite frankly, the projects want the opportunity to answer these questions because most of these folks are very committed to the industries they work in, no differently than our agricultural producers, our feedlots, our dairies are. They like getting the opportunity to answer with facts instead of what somebody shared on Facebook, and I saw a meme that said this. So they like the opportunity to share the facts about the projects, and it'll be a good opportunity for everyone.
I'm sure there'll be lots of questions.
Did Lance take up your whole report?
Yep. I am going to shut up and move on because you guys have other things you need to get through
I'm
today.
sitting on my hands because I'd like to be like Shannon because I'm so excited.
Yeah, it is exciting. I think anytime we bring a new industry in, it's exciting, right? We were like this with the dairy plant, and we were like, oh my gosh, the technology is this and it does that.
Yeah.
It's fun when we see new things that we're not as familiar with. So, yeah, I am happy to answer any questions. I don't think there's anything else that would need to be answered for the public record related to my report. So we can certainly move on, and if you all have additional questions for where we are on specific projects or anything like that, you
Any
can
further questions?
hang around and ask.
Does the visitors have any questions?
Larry already knew all that. Didn't you, Larry?
I'll get to ask you questions.
Okay, we'll move on then. Up next, Steve Cottrell, Special Projects Director.
Is this Ask Lana a lot of questions day?
Yeah.
Not for me.
Steve, don't take as long as you.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining me this morning. It's International Waffle Day. Manatee Appreciation Day for
Oh, I appreciate
sea cow
manatee.
lovers amongst us. American Red Cross Giving Day. Anniversary of the Orango, whatever the hell that is.
Beep.
Excuse me. Bed in for Peace Day, Dante Day, so we don't need Dantes.
Okay.
Feast of the Annunciation. Greek Independence Day.
Oh, cool.
International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of Slavery in the Transatlantic Slave Trade. Having plantation owners in my family tree, I should take a moment to pause. International Day of Solidarity with Detained and Missing Staff Members.
Okay.
Whoever detained or lost a staff member. International Day of the Unborn Child. Little Red Wagon Day.
Man.
Maryland Day. National Governance Professionals Day. National Guadalupe Day. Lobster Newburgh Day. Medal of Honor Day. Michelle Schaefer Half Moon Cookie Day.
Okay.
Well, you know what else it is? It's National I Saw a Possum on the Way to Town Day.
Oh my God.
There you go.
National
But I did see
Amazing.
one.
Now you are informed. You have a lot to celebrate.
Yeah, that's amazing.
There you go.
Old New Year's Day. Struggle for Human Rights. For you Lord of the Rings folks, it's Tolkien Reading Day. Whole Grain Sampling Day. World Maths Day.
How do they come up with all this
I
stuff?
have no idea.
They just like having him up there to read. He's trying to hit some quota.
And World.
Is it World Peace Day? I think we need a World Peace
Yeah.
Day.
No, World Retrospective Day. Okay, after deciding that we weren't gonna respond to any more KDOC RFPs, we got one and submitted on it. It's an industrial prospect that needed 12 acres and 90 employees, so we said, oh, what the hell?
That one we can do.
We can handle that. City Commission on the 3rd recommended approval of the Sky West Essential Air Service proposal for air service to DFW using 65 to 75 seat regional jets. Will still be American Eagle flag. Approved a task order with Wilson and Company for technical representation of the city and county related to KDOT's bypass study. And approved the lease for the airport restaurant with Loving Bakery and Cafe. 17th, approved a resolution refunding Dogwood Energy Center new bonds. City owns about 30% of Dogwood Energy Center back in Kansas City area. Made appointments to several advisory boards and approved 3 lease amendments at the airport for Crosby Flying Services, Loving Bakery, and Being There Ain't Back. On the 2nd, County Commission heard a request for a vacation of Weeks Road in the West Side Industrial Subdivision. On the 16th, they held a public hearing on Garden City Co-op's EX tax abatement. Well, the thing says I didn't do anything commercial. I did work on the Starbond District project plans. Hopefully we'll be able to get the district plan off to Commerce for their blessing later this spring. And just yesterday afternoon, I worked on some incentive program calendars, step-by-step process and procedures for TIFs and CIDs, et cetera. That's it.
Well done.
So the SkyWest approval is not going to change the flights or
Nope.
anything?
No.
Yeah,
Nope.
just a
Those-
big- Just a bigger plane?
Those contracts just have to be renewed.
The smaller plane?
I think so.
No.
That's what the board told me.
We had a short term where we had a larger plane as part of the agreement.
Depends on what pilots they can get in and what
Yeah.
ones they can fly, so they've been bouncing.
We go back and forth between the two larger ones, but yeah. Can't really afford to lose any seats right now. It's
No.
pretty full.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next up, we'll hear from Scott Ost, Communications Director.
Morning. So the views and engagement numbers across all platforms were pretty much the same as last month. The biggest thing this month was probably the Higher Paths Career Hunt. I wrote a story. We all had fun creating the activities and setting up, and I can't believe it was a couple of weeks ago now, but it seems like it's took up huge chunk of our lives. But
It was an
excellent
undertaking.
experience, but it was a lot of fun. So I wrote a story, people were interested in that. Also took up my time was a Youth Entrepreneur Challenge story. Other stories that people were interested in included the school calendar. The refinery grand opening story was also had a high number of views again, which I guess shows that people are interested in the refinery and they look for information, they find us, which is great. As far as Twitter or Twix, it had a little bit different people that looked at. Student Art Month was this past month. PTK students at Garden City Community College were recognized. And then, of course, you see the other things that were on Facebook and Greater Garden City website. Also, last month, I think somebody asked about YouTube viewership. Was it Lance? Last month, we had 30 people look at our meeting video. But last year, it ranged from 55 to 65 people who watched those videos. They're apparently live streamed as we're here now, but they go directly to YouTube. There weren't a lot of metrics we could find yesterday when we thought about that, and but the city's going to look at it, see if there are any other metrics of who's the viewership of our meetings.
So our viewership has gone down.
Well,
No,
for 1 month.
Yeah, 'cause you
The
could go back to-
statistician in the room would tell you it means nothing. Yeah. And also, it's
Is that right?
because those views are tracked over time, so it's not who's watching it in the moment,
Yeah.
to Scott's point. So somebody could go back and watch that February meeting 6 months from now, and the next time we look at it, it may have 100 views. It's just currently, we have a couple of meetings when we were looking back, there were like 120 views
Yeah,
for.
February of 2023,
meetings,
there
so.
were 150, there have been 155 views of that meeting. I don't
Yeah.
remember what we were doing,
Yeah, what we talked about.
That's one.
what was talked
Yeah.
about, but
We did talk about it.
Yeah, so it's not who's watching it right now, it's who
Immediately, yeah.
could watch it at any point in time.
I think that's what we're trying to find out with asking about the city about any additional metrics, if they could tell, but.
I tell people to go in and watch.
Yeah, we just need to work real hard to make it exciting.
Yeah,
We did
well,
that today.
we're doing our part.
I don't know how you can make it more exciting.
Okay, any questions for Scott? Thank you, sir. Up next, Grant Linneberger, Business Development.
Good morning.
Morning.
Client 11252 is entertainment. This client has not yet secured sponsorships for a planned event targeted for late May. Funding is becoming increasingly time sensitive and several key plan components remain incomplete. The client is currently evaluating remaining sponsorship opportunities and alternative financing options. I recommended a meeting to reassess timelines, overall feasibility, and the potential need to shift the event to a later date. Client 12251, entertainment. This client has signed a lease on their selected location despite earlier concerns regarding parking capacity and overall site suitability. They are now exploring alternative financing options and have been connected with neighborhood development services to address operational and site-related considerations. Still waiting further updates from that client. Client 3261, service. This client is seeking startup financing and has been provided with a business plan template to develop a narrative for lenders. Currently waiting initial draft materials for review. Client 3262, it's a service. This client is pursuing a phased approach, beginning with service delivery and planning for a future professional office. They currently have property under contract and are seeking additional funding for startup and renovation costs. They are also engaging with community partners to support the project. Business plan has been received and is under review. Client 3263, food service. This client is operational and seeking assistance in preparing a business plan for an IWW loan. A business plan template and financial workbook have been provided, awaiting follow-up and draft submission.
For your purposes, IWW is an Incentives Without Walls loan program that's managed by Main Street Organization, so Downtown Vision manages that fund.
So this is operational, can you tell us what you're talking about there? Is it-
Well, on the safe side, I would probably keep it
Okay,
private until they was
okay.
applied for and awarded. As far as initiatives go, this month YEC took place, which is Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge. That is a program that is provided by Network Kansas, and we are able to really take advantage of this program through teacher Ember Dorsch at the high school. She takes it upon herself to have her students in her class work through this entire thing to get ready for Youth Entrepreneurship Challenge, which is they create an executive summary and then present that in a pitch, and judges go and review their executive summaries and pitches and give scoring, and funding is, or there's first, second, and third, and a People's Choice Award. So first place this year, Renee Jones won for Cosmo Glide, which was a skating rink concept. sorry, I'm all over the place. There were 22 students that participated. Some of them partnered up with 18 businesses that were represented there. I want to thank the judges that volunteered to participate, Western State Bank for sponsoring the People's Choice Award, and to Network Kansas and Leanne Seiler for all their help in getting this to work, and as well as Amber Dorch. And then we had our Higher Pass event, which Scott had mentioned that we put a lot of time and effort in with our activities in our office. And one important note is we reached over 600 plus 7th grade students. There was a morning and afternoon session that was split up, 300 in the morning, 300 in the afternoon. 12 industries were represented on what the students were able to go through and learn about through these activities. And I want to thank all of our partners in that. And then ongoing, there's a youth committee. This is something that hasn't been active, but prior to me being on with economic development, youth committee was working on things like building bridges, if you heard of that. The focus is career awareness, employer engagement, workforce readiness, retention of local talent. People that are part of that committee, educators, local employers, workforce, and economic development partners, and community stakeholders. The purpose of this committee is to combine multiple committees that may be creating employers, like too many interactions with employers. So trying to bottleneck, or I don't know.
Trying to streamline advisory committees specifically, so.
At a loss of words.
Yes, excuse me. So both of your high schools in the county require that they have CTE, career tech education. As part of that, the state requires that they have advisory committees, folks from the industries who interact with the education professionals to ensure that we are preparing students appropriately for the workforce that's available, the careers that are available for them. And then additionally, the community college also, any of those programs where they're offering the same technical pathways are required to have advisory committees. So in the past, we've had one industry, one company expected to show up for Holcomb's advisory committee meeting, and then Garden City's, which may be a week later, and then Garden City Community Colleges, which may be another week later, whatever the case may be. So as part of those discussions, there's no reason we should all be requiring these same people to give and give and give. Let's combine, all of us get the questions answered that we need answered, and require that employer to only be there once instead of 3 times if possible. So that's just one of the areas that committee focuses on, is trying to streamline that process, again, to reduce the burden on our local businesses.
Yes, that.
Ditto.
Very good. Sorry, I'm mumbling up here. Yeah, so I will start to take lead on that. It's been dormant for a bit, but that will start being in effect going forward. And then upcoming summer internship program, that would be also another project that I will start working on, and have more people on that later.
Who's that for?
Summer internship program. Any interns that are finding themselves here in the summer. So we'll reach out to employers, see what type of programs that they already have established, get these interns connected with each other, put them in front of anyone in our community, and just give them opportunities to showcase our community through already existing events that are happening, or whether we create an event for them. Whatever that looks like.
I believe the county attorney's office takes advantage of that program for their interns.
Yeah, the goal is to get them introduced to our community in a way that they might not otherwise, if they're just,
Might stay.
if they're just going to work and going home at night, they may not get to see the things that make our community unique and attractive for them. So it's an opportunity to, again, get them involved in the community, hopefully get them introduced to people, and yeah, get them addicted to us so they come back when they're done with college.
We want, we want addiction, yeah. Questions for Grant? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I do have to step out, so thank you for your time.
All right.
Next up, Shannon Dick, Director of Analytics.
Sorry, I'm really excited. I'm gonna get here.
Shannon's quick this time. That's
That'll be quick.
the good news.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. Couple things. We looked at the numbers for a higher path through Placer, and good news, they didn't give us a count. Why is that good news? Because they say they don't track kids, and they didn't. Their cell phones, their kids definitely had cell phones.
Yeah.
So it's actually a really good thing. So we get around that, we talk about Placer being able to accurately count things like Boo in the Zoo and stuff like that. But that's when they know that there's a kid event. They didn't know there's a kid event, so they weren't able to accurately reflect the cell phone counts.
Wow.
So we can go back and say, hey, we had a school event. Can you go and go see, because they know the ratios of teachers to students and stuff like that. But it was really neat to not let them know and then actually get a zero count. Well, it wasn't a zero count, it's too smallish. It was under 50. You're like, okay, maybe you actually aren't tracking kids' phones, which is really neat to have those little tests that you do without letting anybody know that you're testing them. The other thing that's not this map, and Lana touched on this with this economic report, like she said, we don't do the floofy numbers. This is just direct numbers. And if you like big reports, just wait for KU's economic impact. That is very thorough. This is just coming up with some of the stuff that came up before, and I'll tell about why I'm even doing this the way I did it. But when we're talking about what businesses like when they move into a community, or when we're talking about restaurants and commercial, one of the new numbers that they really care about is the median household income. And so I pulled this data. That's what it is. It's kind of hard to see what the outline of Kansas is there, but you can see Southwest Kansas. You know where we're at. So we do pretty good here. This is from the FRED's website. So FRED is Federal Reserve Economic Data website. They are not getting their data in as fast as they traditionally do. So somebody at the website decided to revamp how they do things and give just a whole bunch of tools. So I challenged myself to make as many maps as I could in 5 minutes. I would say typically when you see a map that I do with the different blues and reds and stuff like that, that's maybe like an hour process to do, to go pull the data, go color everything individually. So I did 5 minutes, the maps I could do. I started with this one because after I saw this, I'm like, okay. So here's the GDP change from 2024 to 2023. So how much did the change in economic data from one year to the next? Pretty good. So I made that one. Per capita personal income change for 2024 to 2023. So how much are people making different person in our area? Also good for our region. And then the final one I was able to do is civilian labor force change from 2024 to 2023. What's really interesting about this, we're one of the highest caller-wise, and when you can hover over this on the computer, but we're like one of the top 3 number-wise of new civilian employment, so not military, in Kansas from 2024 to 2023. So it's really interesting to see how many jobs that are not just available, but people are taking. We're one of the top number-wise, not percentage-wise, number-wise. Anyway, so I made those 4 in about 5 minutes. Normally that would take me more than half of a day to make this kind of stuff. You have so many controls. You can change the colors, you can change the brights, you can change everything. It's really cool. I'm glad for whoever did that for me. I'm sure it was just for me.
Of course it was.
So that's all the stuff. So I just thought some really interesting data that just highlights what's going on. Nothing new and surprising. We're doing well out here.
Everything's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's good. Questions? No questions. Thank you, Shannon. Okay, next up, we have a guest presentation.
We do, and bless her heart for sitting through everything she did.
Yeah,
Been very
thank you
patient.
for
Well, I
going.
just
I think Lana missed her calling. She probably should have been a teacher.
It's not too late.
I mean, well, right. And the good news is you can do it right here. You don't have to leave your community. So, no, I learned a lot. I'm glad I was here for the hour and whatever. I learned a lot about what day it is. And a lot of words I wasn't really sure what they were saying. But it's all good. So, good morning. My name is Jessica Bird. I'm the Dean for the School of Education and Social Work at Newman University, along with Associate Vice President of Outreach Education. I live here in Garden City. I've lived here since 1998 when I graduated from kindergarten. No, just kidding. College, that's when it was. I got my first teaching job in Garden City and told the world that I would be here for a year or two, just get a little experience, and fell in love with this community and haven't left since, and I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. So thanks for letting me come and speak to you this morning. I appreciate that. My work in Southwest Kansas really focuses on expanding higher education access and opportunities across this region. The history of Newman, you've probably heard it if you've been to a chamber breakfast, or if you've been anywhere in the last couple of years, you've been hearing us talk, but we were founded during the Great Depression by a group of nuns, sisters, who their mission was to provide access to education to those who may not have the opportunity. So at that time it was women, and they started Teachers College and started training women to go out and be teachers. So fast forward many, many years to the 90s, and St. Mary's of the Plains College closed in Dodge City, and they approached our sisters and said, would you take over our education program? We're really worried about the teacher shortage in Southwest Kansas. That was in the 90s. So still a similar story, sadly, but we're making a dent. I'll tell you about that in a minute. So they closed. We said, yeah, we'll take over. No problem. So that's how Newman started our Southwest Kansas journey. We've been here a long time. Our education program, while it was housed out of the Dodge City campus, we had a site here. We've had a site here since that same time in Garden City, and have been delivering education opportunities, elementary education opportunities. We've educated well over 1,000 teachers in Southwest Kansas since then. So, in fall of 2023, we submitted 2 major grants to expand outreach and workforce aligned programs for Southwest Kansas specifically. We received a $2.1 million grant for the Rural Post-Secondary Education Development Project, and we received a $1.1 million congressional designated spending from Senator Moran's team. And with those funds, they all came back to Southwest Kansas. We've expanded our programming. Each year we've added more, and I'll kind of go through that in a minute. But I'll focus a second on the CDS grant. It was a $1.1 million grant for agribusiness, or agricultural technology management. We've changed the name of that program, and we were able to purchase a ginormous, do you like that term? That's statistically appropriate. A ginormous trailer that we have converted into a smart agricultural laboratory. It's mobile. It has to be hauled by a semi. So we did that in partnership with the community college and Seward with their CDL program. So their students can also get hours driving our big mobile lab around. It's been a major project. So we've had the lab for a while. We've been trying to get the equipment. There were some hiccups along the way with equipment, but we're sorted out now. We have the equipment mostly in. Some of the items in there, there's a simulator lab experience where you can learn to drive a combine and a tractor, and it's real world feel, like it's a simulation. So We have VR headsets, we have drones, we have a massive drone, a $60,000 drone that flies over crops and land and can map it and identify emergent weeds and things like that, and then it plots it out. I mean, it's way beyond my capacity, but really, really cool high-tech agricultural equipment that we're going to be able to showcase around the region. The cool thing about the lab is we've already had organizations reach out to us and say, hey, when is it going to be ready? We want to use it for this event, or we want to use it as a training site for some of the area farmers. They want to see what the drone can do, and you know. So we are partnering with lots of different agencies to get the lab out on the road and get some exposure that way. And then it's going to be used also when it's here in Garden City. It's used as a classroom space for our students that are in the ag or the business and data analytics programs. Before I forget, the ribbon cutting for that is April 7th. You're all invited. Senator Moran will be here. It will be at the refinery at 5 p.m. If you're asking why the refinery, we needed a space big enough to park the trailer and then a space to go inside and have some hors d'oeuvres and snacks and such. So please come to that ribbon cutting. I would love it. So since 2024, in fall 2024, we added business, agricultural technology management, and then nursing, RN to BSN. Fall 25, we launched 6 more programs. And then in fall 26, we're launching sonography, diagnostic medical imaging. So students will be able to get their sonography degree. Ours is a bachelor's degree, it's a 4-year degree, so we partnered obviously with the community college. They get their first 2 years there, and they stay right here, and they finish their next 2 years. The crazy thing about the sonography, we did very little advertising, and we had 40 apps within like 2 days. I mean, it was insane. And then we did a little more advertising, and we hit 60 before I had to hit the shut-off button. So that's great news for this region, right? Because there's a huge shortage. Obviously, you know, the hospital uses traveling folks to come in. They pay them more than they would pay a local person who lives and resides in this community. So that's exciting. We think we'll be able to offer about 15 clinical spots. So of those 60 applications, only 15 will likely get fully accepted and get into the first cohort. Once we establish that pipeline, though, we'll be able to add more clinical space, because right now the problem is if the hospital only has one sonographer between Garden and Dodge City, that's only really 1 or 2 students they could even think about supervising to get them into their workforce pipeline. So once we build on that, we'll be able to then add more students to the clinical sites, because they'll have the capacity to supervise them. Right now, we have to start slow. So, and then...
So you go, excuse me for interrupting, you go through an interview process to determine the 15 that are selected?
Yeah, they do. They go through a pretty rigorous process. There's GPA requirements. They submit letters of recommendation. They, the team from main campus came out yesterday actually and conducted the 15 interviews that we did, and then after the interview they take an aptitude test that's required for them to be able to be admitted into the program. So.
Okay.
And then exciting news, fall 27, we are launching radiological technology, so rad tech will come. That'll also be kind of a slower start, a small cohort to start, but once we get that pipeline established, we'll be able to keep up with the needs of the region. So that partnership for the medical things, we just, you probably saw it on Facebook, but we entered into an agreement with Common Spirit, so we signed an official MOU with Common Spirit and Garden City Community College. Part of that, that group, so the three entities, just are working on submitting the Rural Health Transformation Program grant. So the state got $220 million for rural health care issues. And so we will, as a group, we're submitting a grant request to that. We're not sure of the final dollar amount, but somewhere around 5 to 10 million.
Wow.
So we'll see. We're hopeful. Program completers, so fall 24, we had a total of 52 program completers. Of those 52, 23 were Garden City Community College graduates. So our partnership with Garden City is super strong, very strong. We're able to meet their needs. So they come to us and they're like, hey, we need you to pick up where this leaves off, right? And so that's how we're developing these programs. It's all based on what the community college needs are, what the county, the city, the region's needs are, and we're not trying to bring programs that aren't relevant to the area. We do have some like one-off, like kind of random programs that you'll see on this page that I'm gonna give you when I leave. Those are programs that we run through a consortium agreement, so they're kind of tech, like AI. They could get a degree in AI. So, but we run all the business courses for that, and then there's some specialized courses. The reason we can offer those and like cybersecurity, certified financial planner is because we're part of a consortium that offers those core classes. There's just usually 15 credits in there that are run through that. So current active students, we have 64 as of right now, and 32 of those are Garden City Community College students. Fall 26 applications are coming in. We're sitting at around 40, 45 applicants, and over half of those are Garden City Community College students or graduates. Partnerships, like I mentioned, the MOU with Common Spirit and the community college, and then we've been partnering with American Implement. One thing that people don't know about Newman, because we're small, private, they don't think of us in this way, but we have some true experts in the AI field, and so they have designed training for organizations, businesses, and community members, and so we're doing AI boot camps. But we brought one of those boot camps out here to Garden City for American Implement. We spent 3 days with them. They had 2 different groups that went through the morning session, and then a group that went through the afternoon session. And then the chamber has reached out and is interested in maybe offering something like that for the community or their business membership. So, which leads me to the next thing. We just submitted a new congressional designated spending request for an AI institute. The AI Institute would have 2 hubs. The first hub would be based out of Wichita, and the second hub would be here in Garden City. And that's an interesting initiative. It's think of it kind of like a resource center for individuals and businesses and students to come and learn about AI, explore AI, pool our resources together so that people have more access to even better things, to be able to do their work as it's changing. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Your mobile classroom is the one that's out by the Dennis Perriman Center?
Yes,
Okay.
it is, yeah. It's been set up at the community college. It's right now, interestingly enough, it is parked inside the wash bay at USD 457's Transportation Center, because that's the only space large enough that I could find so it could be wrapped. So A1 Sign could come in and put the wrap around it. That was a nightmare. That started on Monday. And so anyways, it's being wrapped right now, so that it'll be ready for our April 7th event. But
Good.
it'll be back over there Friday if you want to drive by and just sneak peek at it. It's going to look pretty cool.
Awesome.
Are there any
Questions?
other questions, comments?
What's the percentage of courses that are taught on campus versus online, or?
Yeah, so we offer our programs, the majority of our programs are offered in a high flex delivery model, meaning so for the business classes, they could have the instructor here in person, or they can opt to be on Zoom, because we will live stream it for the class, and then, or they can select a fully online option. So it's designed to meet any learner's need.
Right.
The working adult, a traditional student, or the student who doesn't want to be around people and just wants to do it online. So most of them are offered in that modality, with a few just fully online. But as far as a percentage, I would say over 50% are available in person if they want it, but most students aren't. They choose it when it's convenient, so that's why we did the high flex. So like 1 week they could go in person, the next week they could be on Zoom. So I don't know,
That makes
excellent date on that, but I'll tell Shannon to figure it out.
Well, no, yeah, I was gonna say, well, I taught a couple of classes for that, and so I was teaching in Person Garden City, we had people from Liberal, we had people from Dodge, but when there was times where we were doing projects or whatever, they would just drive over and we just meet everybody in person. So I mean, most of the time when it's just normal instruction, you don't need to do that, but when you're doing the special project stuff, they all came over, and they didn't have to, but they like, oh, I need to come in person that time. So yeah, it's a really, really neat way to do education at the higher level.
So you mentioned various percentages, but about half of them are graduates of Garden City Community College. Where are the majority of the rest of the students coming from?
That's a really good question. I didn't put it in this presentation, but it's split evenly between Dodge and Seward.
Okay.
Maybe a little heavier on the Seward side. And then there are some random folks who didn't graduate from any of those three, but they're living here in Southwest Kansas now.
Okay.
So there's about 6 or 7 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't mention, we offer the scholarship. That's one of our, kind of signature parts of the deal. We give a $20,000 scholarship to any student who earned their associate's degree from Garden, Dodge, or Liberal. And then we do a Pell match. So if they're eligible for Pell, meaning they get some free federal dollars, we match that dollar for dollar. So students who have the most need get the greatest amount of help. They can do their degree for as little as $750 a year.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's very affordable.
That's great.
And if they're not Pell eligible, they still get the $20,000 scholarship, and it's comparable to any state tuition you would look at.
Any further questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave a bag of pens and then the handouts on the end here, since I
Very
put the
good.
donuts right in the middle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. Looks like we have some.
Hello, we have some new business, yes, and we'll go fast unless you have a lot of questions. So the first item under new business is consideration of an office door expenditure. We, for those of you who have used our back door, know that we have a steel door on the back of the building. It is somewhere around 40 years old, maybe.
Just 40?
This is maybe older than that.
To have gotten trapped on the outside.
Yeah, it unfortunately has some challenges, and it does have a couple of holes that unfortunately now have expanded to the place where if somebody chose to, they could break in through that back door. So Shannon has complained about it long enough that I finally called Kenny Glass and said, okay, what would it cost to replace the back door? Because Shannon's convinced somebody's going to break the door down. So anyway, the estimate to replace that door, they did come look at it. They said, the frame is in perfect condition and you wouldn't want to take that out because it is inside the masonry, which would be a real mess to take out. But just to replace the door itself with and include a keypad lock, that would be $4,450 to replace that door. So that is an expenditure outside of what we can make without board authorization. So here's your opportunity to tell
I move
us.
to authorize the expenditure.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize the expenditure for a new
Got a question.
aluminum door.
For sure.
I mean, it's been a number of years ago since we moved in there, but we're a renter there, aren't we?
We are.
So why the landlord's not taking care of that?
Part of our lease is that we take care of expenditures that aren't, I guess, affixed to the building. I don't know how to better describe that, but he did pay for the original cosmetic upgrades even for us, put in all the carpet and that kind of stuff. And additionally, we have not had an increase in rent in the 12 years that we've been in the building. So, yeah, we kind of felt like it was really our responsibility to pay for that, because he certainly didn't have to replace the door, obviously, but yeah, so
Or
that's
whether-
why.
Or whether there was other options or bid considerations,
Yeah, we did not.
And it's pretty much specific to what you need for your operation.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is
Yeah.
they wouldn't have to have it if they didn't need the kind of security
Yeah.
that we're looking to have. Yes, that's correct.
I've never come through that door before, but you need a key on the outside to get in?
Well, yeah, and sometimes even that's not enough. It, again, is just a pretty old door, and the mechanism inside isn't great. So a lot of times, you can turn and turn and turn and pull, and it's still not going to open, unfortunately, which isn't usually a big deal during the day. However, I often get there when it is dark, or I leave when it is dark, and not being able to secure the door or gain access to the building when it's dark, and I get scared sometimes. So, and I'm not the only one. Sometimes the bookkeeper calls me and says, I can't get in the building and I'm scared, so I sit in my car till you come help me. So it's a little dark in our back area, and so it would just be nice to have that remedied.
Do you have a light back there? Is there a light?
There's a street light and a parking lot light.
Okay, but no building light.
No. There is a light component there. I don't know if it works.
It's just a kind of a secluded area.
Oh, yeah, I know where it's located.
We're kind of in a cubby back there with our cats.
Would like a motion censored light work? Like a battery operated?
Yeah, I don't know.
That'd be pretty simple.
I'm sure we could.
Pretty simple to do that.
We can check into that too.
Yeah, that'd be a simple fix for something like that.
Yeah.
So your cats and your.
Well, they're gonna set it off probably.
Trash in the parking lot.
Yeah, and a ring, yeah, and, it might be worth looking into doing some kind of security for your
We'll
cats.
check on that.
I know you're down there long hours.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this expenditure. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you. The next item for consideration is we have our Washington DC delegation trip scheduled for April the 19th through the 22nd. As of right now, I am slated to get in the night of the 22nd from DC. But as you may or may not have heard, we do have some challenges at our nation's airports right now.
Oh, really?
So there's no guarantees. So I'm just simply offering to you that we could consider changing the meeting to Thursday morning instead of Wednesday morning, just to ensure that I get back from Washington, D.C. Or you can opt to go ahead and have the meeting on the 23rd, and if I'm not here, just know that you would have Shannon running the meeting. So it is up to you all.
Can we do it
I'm
on
good with
Friday?
the 23rd.
Can we do it on Friday?
We can certainly check into that. Would Friday the 25th work for others?
It's 24th.
I'm sorry, that would be the 24th.
Vicki, that's when we're going to the lake.
Oh, yeah, we'll be gone. Yeah. Or would there be any reason we couldn't move it a week to the 29th even? Not put you in such a bind?
Yeah, we would just need to check with the city and make sure that the space is available. But does the 29th work for everyone else? Okay.
Work for me.
All right, I will double check that, make sure that that works with the city. If it doesn't, we will see if we need to move the location. But one way or another, we'll have the meeting then on Wednesday, April 29th. Thank you for your consideration of that.
Yep.
Yeah, the 23rd, like, I have a doctor's appointment in Hayes, so I'd have to reschedule it, which isn't a big deal.
It's a big deal. Sometimes
Yeah.
those are hard to come by.
Rescheduling doctor appointments, you don't want to do that.
No worries.
Yeah.
All right, the next item on the agenda is the budget request. Every year, as you know, the fiscal committee gets together, goes through the budget and determines what our ask will be of the public entities for the next year. What you have in front of you, the working spreadsheet that you have, that far column to the right is where I've showed you what the changes are that are being requested, that the fiscal committee has suggested be requested. So you can see that the requests to all of the entities have gone up, not much, but have gone up a little bit. And on the actual expense side, when you go through, you'll see that we do have an increase in project development budget. We increased that line item by $50,000. And that's really just to allow, as we're working on the multitude of very large projects that we have going through processes right now, that just gives us the flexibility to bring on another staff member, even if that's just a temporary staff member, if we're successful in finding somebody who's qualified to be helpful. The fiscal committee just thought it was a good idea to have that ability to hire someone if they came along. And then there's a $500 increase to marketing, a $500 increase, so it offsets itself in the total marketing category. And then you see that we did have an increase in employee salary line item of $14,000, and we did increase the health insurance budget by $15,000, which, again, not a lot we can do to control that. Those costs just seem to keep increasing year over year. So, and then on the last page, you'll see that there are a couple of items that we adjusted. So we show a slight increase in the business owner's insurance policy, taking it from $1,500 a year to $1,600 a year, and that's really just to accurately reflect what that premium is now. And then we reduced one of the other categories by $30 to take it to an even $1,000. And then an increase in the rent and utilities line item of $2,000 additional, and $2,000 additional in professional fees, computer accounting. So that's our bookkeeping service, our tax accounting, and our computers are in that line item. So overall, you can see that the total increase in operating expenses down at the second to the bottom line is an $83,000 increase overall in budgeted dollars. This does show, if you look at the very bottom of the far green column, you'll see that there's kind of a mustardy color down there at the bottom of that. That shows that $103,000. That is the carryover that goes into the next year. That number looks a little frightening and probably, oh, that seems to be cutting it close. We never actually spend all of our budgeted allocated dollars, thankfully. So our carryover is always more than we anticipate it's going to be, and we're very careful to not get down into the danger zone, if you will, on funding. So happy to answer any questions you have. If you don't have any questions, and you can just approve the budget request. Our first presentation of this budget will be to the fiscal committee at Finney County, and that is next week. And then we're set to present as an outside agency to the county in April. We've already got that date set. And you all will be made aware of those. If you care to come along and watch how a budget presentation goes, you're welcome to do so. So happy to answer any questions you have for the community college and for City of Holcomb. If you would like us to come and present the budget presentation, more than happy to do so and talk through that. So there'll be a full presentation with it.
I tried to get a hold of Nikki and give her the breakdown. I can't decide anything really for her.
You're fine. And like I said, we're happy to go and present to them, and that way we can answer any questions they might have about it as well.
So are we actively pursuing another person?
We are not at this
Not
time.
at this time?
No, not at
Okay.
this time. We've had a couple of conversations, but we're going through a staff alignment process where we're really looking at each of the roles that we currently have and kind of determining what latitude we have, what flexibility, and if the existing employees in those roles have some desire to add an element to their job or shift some of their time allocation stuff. So we aren't in a place yet where we would say this is exactly what we need somebody to do, but we're working through that process. And again, just wanted to have the latitude that if the right person came along, we would have the ability to get them on the team.
We have a couple of commissioners present here. Is there any comments on our requested increase?
Well, he can't see it.
I can't see it.
Oh.
I agree with it. I think we have not, we have underfunded economic development for a while, not just Finney County, but all of the entities. And we haven't had, and this is not a significant increase, but I think it's something that's overdue.
Is there any possibility your employees could fall under either the city's health plan or the county's health plan?
There's not by current insurance law. We looked into that, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, and we couldn't do it at that time because we're not a component of government. We are a standalone nonprofit organization that just happens to be fully funded by taxpayer dollars. We have found some other savings on facility type work, cleaning service and that kind of stuff, where the city's able to get us in under some of their stuff. But as far as, those things that are regulated by the government, no, we do not qualify as employees of any of the entities.
Lonnie, we're talking about the employees with all these projects. Do you see a need for an additional person?
Again, it's possible. Like I said, right now what we're trying to determine is who has any extra bandwidth that currently is employed there. What can we do to shift and what can we do to increase efficiencies and productivity? So that's a kind of a big undertaking in our office right now. I mean, we're talking about everything from space usage to are there any additional, AI tools or those types of things that we can be utilizing to more efficiently operate and to automate more things, to get more out of who we already have on staff, right? So we're going through some of those processes. I think we'll likely identify some things that will help us to meet a lot of the needs with the staffing we currently have, but they're simply, as Shannon and I say every day, this day is crazy, and it's the least crazy day we're going to have for the next 5 years. So we all get that every single day is a little more work than the day before it, and that's a beautiful thing. We are incredibly blessed as a community to be in a position where we are that busy and we have that much activity going on. But it's a big undertaking, and we're incredibly blessed, again, with the teams that are in place at all of our partner entities. We have just an incredible team of folks who are working really hard to ensure that we meet the needs of our community and create the economic opportunities that we are required to create or formed to create. But and we will do our best to meet those needs without any additional folks. But yes, there is still a limit. There are only so many hours in a day and in a week. And I know about all the hours. I've been there, all of the hours. I can give you intimate details about the hours that are available the 7 days a week that I'm there. But again, we're going to look for all of the efficiencies and productivity increases first, and then we'll be able to better determine what that would look like if we were to hire somebody additional.
Because we've had this conversation before.
Well, we don't want to burn anybody out.
Right.
We have such a good staff.
Yeah.
Agreed. I don't want to live without any of them, so we're doing our level best to determine how best to utilize the people, the space, the time that we have, and design our work as efficiently and productively as we can. And then again, whatever gaps happen to exist, we will not sacrifice quality and quantity of the work that we provide. So if it requires getting an additional person, that is what we will do, because we will not sacrifice the level of service that we provide to our community members and to the projects that we work with.
Well, I will say it'd be easier to be proactive than reactive if we get to that point.
Yeah, and I would tell you the other challenge is that working in this industry is very different than any other work that takes place within the community. So there is not a plethora of folks hanging around who can step into our office and know the inner workings of what we do and have a really good, strong understanding of, number one, what we do, how we do it, the processes that are required, so it's the other part of that is that we don't utilize, quote, administrative people. Everybody on the FCEDC team is specialized and responsive to our primary goals. So it's a little more challenging than just putting out a job posting and hoping that we get somebody. But again, we want to ensure we are fully taxpayer funded, and we want to ensure that any position we create or anybody we hire is going to be somebody who understands the gravity of the work we do, understands the commitment that we have to our taxpayers and to our constituency, and also enjoys doing the work. Not everybody, hard to believe, but not everybody loves the crazy pace that we keep in our offices, and that's okay. We understand that, but so we will do our best to, again, create the efficiencies and productivity and then determine if there's a need to hire an additional person.
The thing about this budget, though, is it does allow her the flexibility to hire somebody, because we did set aside an additional $50,000 for that. So, correct. If she doesn't hire anybody, we'll have more money next year. But
I move that we accept the budget request for 2027.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the 2027 budget, proposed budget. Any further questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
That's all we have.
No old business?
No, sir.
Okay. Upcoming events.
Nothing.
May not be April 22nd, well, it won't be probably April 22nd.
Probably not.
Everybody else get this invitation empirical?
Yeah, I don't know if I responded or not, have I?
I don't know, go respond. There's just a link in the email that you sign
Yeah,
up for,
okay.
so.
We're leaving town. Do you think they can reschedule
Is this just for our group, or is it a?
It is an invite-only event,
Okay.
but we'll also include federal delegation, state delegation, and all of our local electeds.
Okay.
It's April 8th, yeah.
When is it?
April 8th. April 8th, Larry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Build it out, send it back.
all right.
What time does it start?
11:30.
Okay, do we have a need for executive session?
That is up to you all. We certainly have updates that we could share in an executive session, or because of the length of the meeting, if you would rather not hold an executive session and instead just open up opportunities for folks to stop by the office and get their updates. It's entirely up to you.
Comments?
Yours fine with me.
Okay.
Good.
As long as we have a
with ha-
bathroom break first.
Yeah. I was gonna suggest that.
Okay,
And
so,
could we have a short break before?
sure.
Yeah, so you might just set a
20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes?
It's almost 9:30, so I think if you took a 5-minute break and then said we would complete executive session by 10.
Okay.
Do you have
How long
time?
do you think it'll take, Lorna?
I'm sorry.
How long do you think it'll take?
We'll just limit it to
I have
the,
a job at 10 o'clock
yep,
today.
we'll limit it to the 20 minutes we have
Well,
after
you
that.
might miss some of the good stuff then.
I'm, first time I have a job in a long time. And it's a pay.
Okay,
Adjourn to executive session.
I'll second it.
it's been
Thank
moved and
you.
seconded to, hold on now, to go into executive session. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, staff.
Get all educated.
Thank you.
See you later.
Thank you, visitor.